Okay, I'm just going to tune us in with a little prayer, if you don't mind, because we're going deep sea fishing today. So, I picture yourself by yourself in a very quiet place where it's just you. Don't look at me. I'm not a spiritual statue. Don't look at me. Picture yourself somewhere else. Under the sky, anywhere else. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And Lord, take me down deep into the reason you gave me life. Take me down deep. Today I'm going exploring into me. Today I'm going into the deeper powers of me. Help me to discover something I do not know about myself. Help me to meet my soul. I don't know that part of myself. I block it too often with my mind. I think my mind is my soul, but it's not. It's not. It's too rational, too logical. I'm frightened of this part of myself that is utterly spiritually mad. A madness. Help me reach that part. Let me discover something I do not know about myself. Hover over me, Lord. Amen. You have to pray like you're mad, like you're utterly insane. Okay, off we go. We're going into the second and the third level of you. The second and the third level of you. What makes this, and good morning to all of you out there, by the way. What makes this time of life, this time of history, this time we're living in, so extraordinary, is that it is a time of the inner self. Unlike any other time in the history of civilization. Isn't that an incredible statement? In the history of civilization. For you to be on this kind of quest of the self, as you are pursuing it now, you would have had to go into a mystery school. And you wouldn't leave it. You wouldn't then return to your ordinary life and ordinary around. You would remove yourself and go into a mystery school because you would be learning the arts of the soul. And it was believed in the mystery school that learning rhetorica and dialectica and mathematics and astronomy and musica and the inner arts of the soul were the arts that liberated the soul. That's how they became the liberal arts. They liberated the soul. That you needed to learn how to dialogue with your soul. You had to learn the finer arts of your interior in order to have a way of dialoguing and being with the exterior so that the exterior didn't dominate the gifts that you had. You had to have this refinement. Okay, I think that's exceptional. This was the time of Plato, the time of Aristotle, that you had to know this. Later, that type of refinement became routed into the monastic life. into one far more focused into what we call mysticism. The mysteries of the soul, specifically merging with the sacred. Under this idea, this belief, this perception, that there was a sacredness to the soul that we could access, somehow that we could access through a route of deep prayer. Prayer was not the route of the mystery school. Discipline was. Athletics. There was a different pursuit in the mystery schools. It was far more physically based, lower level based, the perfection of different aspects, but it still was discipline and perfection and focus. So structurally, it was the same. We took the structure and moved it, shifted it to an internal, and that is what Jesus did. He said, I'm going to give you a different structure, I'm going to move it inside. That's what Buddha did. I'm going to give you a different structure, I'm going to move it inside. What Buddha essentially said is that the structure that you're looking at, the art of life, is to learn the structure that you're a part of. You're a part of nature. This is the structure that's in you. This is the only structure that is not basically the illusion. You follow nature. The Tao said, you learn to follow the Tao. You go with the flow. You don't attach to things because all things change. Things can change in a second. They can change in a second. What is that book? What is that book? The nature of all things, I think it is. The nature of all things. The nature of all things. There was a man in Poggio. In 1410, I think it was. Check the date, 1410. Who was a book hunter? Is that not delicious? He was a book hunter. Of course, books were rare commodities. His name was, he was a very educated man in Old Latin, which meant Roman Latin. And in those days, and because he was so educated in Latin, he was a scribe for a pope. So he wrote letters for a pope. He actually lost his job because this pope was kicked out of office, the only pope to be kicked out of office. At any rate, Poggio was this book hunter, and what he would do was he would go find old books that had teachings in them that went all the way back to the Roman days, when these rich teachings about Cicero and Plato and Aristotle were scripted down. And how they did that was because the scrolls were so rare, and it took so long to make these scrolls and to refine the leather that they came from. What they often did, what the monks often did, was to scrape off this precious writing and rewrite texts, Christian texts on them. But if you can believe this, some of these Latin scholars were so gifted that they could see through the script into the Old Latin. Poggio was one of those. Now, in finding these rare books, these book hunters knew that the place that they had to go was monasteries, because monasteries were the places that duplicated these ancient books. And he knew that probably the best monastery was this place in Germany. So he set out, once he was released from his employment with this pope that was kicked out, he set out to find this monastery in Germany. And he had to be very clever about this because he needed to look through their manuscripts. So he gets there, and in fact, he finds this one manuscript called The Nature of All Things by a Roman named Lucretius. And Lucretius was this Roman who was a bit of a philosopher mystic. Now, my point is, like Aristotle, like Plato, like Pythagoras, this particular era, and you may think it has nothing to do with you, but you are very mistaken. This era was a time of extraordinary clarity. Why is that ringing? All right, of extraordinary clarity. Of extraordinary, the air and the currents intuitively were like pure air. Where the channels were just so brilliantly lit. It was a time when Pythagoras received mathematics. The order of the universe was simply given to Buddha, to Pythagoras, to Euripides, to Plato, to Aristotle. This is the way of virtue. This is the way of reason. Structures were completely given to these people to order the laws of the universe. These are the laws. The Old Testament, these are the laws. The Ten Commandments, these are the laws. The laws were pouring down. This was the era of the laws, when humanity just was given the laws. And Lucretius finds this book. And in this book are the laws in which Poggio finds this book, and Lucretius writes, this universe is made up of energy. And energy is never destroyed. It becomes something, and then that something dissolves, and energy goes back, and it becomes atoms. And he uses the word atoms. It's made up of atoms. This is 2,600 years ago. Totally revealed how the order of the universe is, how matter becomes atoms, atoms becomes matter, and how it's influenced by us. That the choices we make influence the construction of atoms, and it's as simple as that. And we are totally a part of the elements of nature, that we are one with nature, that our atoms blend with the atoms of nature, that we are one with the plants and one with the nature kingdom, that as we breathe, they breathe, all life breathes together. That this is the system and the cycle of life. Well, can you imagine someone in the 15th century reading this, who has been inundated with this story that the world actually is all about this God that was so upset that he sends his son, and the son is slaughtered. That's the story. That's one of the stories, that's one of the narratives. Or that they're waiting for a savior called a Messiah. Or that these other stories, when here is a plan that's simply mathematics and creation, the substance of creation. Before human beings brought human myths of human narratives and had to humanize God to look like them. that once we started to humanize God to look like us, trouble started. That's when trouble started. When we had to tell stories about God that looked like us, that behaved like us, that thought like us. When we had to set up cosmic courts of law so that God reasoned like us. This is very important to understand. That God reasoned like us. So that we began to talk. There's got to be a reason for this. And it had better be logical. Logical, according to my logic, by the way. Not yours, and not yours, and not yours, but my logic. Not your logic. Mine. According to my justice, not yours, but mine. So that if anything happens that makes me unhappy, I'm the center of the universe. You spin around me. Your life spins around me. You need to know that. So that the events of your life serve me as they unfold. Now, your position might be that the events of my life serve you. In which case, we have a remedy for that, and that's called war. That is why we go to war. You go to war with me, I go to war with you, and thus nations go to war with each other, and there is no difference. If you have ever gone to war with anyone in the form of an argument, a power play, anybody? Anybody here? Then you participate in world wars, small wars, conflicts. You are a warrior. You make war. Do not think and don't ever join a peace movement. Ever. You're the sort of peace person who someone scratch your attitude just a little bit and you become ferocious and vicious. Vengeful, hypersensitive, because that's the truth about you. Tell me that's not true. Thank you. This is what's called knowing thyself and you know your universe. This is what Poggio, Lucretius knew. It was revealed way back then, before we decided God behaved like us. The extraordinariness of this moment is that what is getting revealed is exactly what they knew then. That there is no God that looks like us. There is no off-planet God that looks like us, behaves like us. We've reached the end of that era of anthropomorphic deities that are made up and fictionalized so that allow us to make choices that kill each other. The game is over. We can't afford those myths anymore. And curiously, Lucretius' book is on the market again. Don't you think that's interesting? Which brings me to you. Oh, by the way, when Poggio brought that book back out of the monasteries, and he brought it into Rome, and he translated it, and he thought what to do with it. It was like a long journey till it really made it into the public. But once it did, it's credited with being the match that lit the Renaissance. That lit the fire of the Renaissance. That you think, can one thing start an entire new wave of something? And it was this one thing that lit all that is new? Can it be that we're created of, that we are made up of an energetic substance, and that thoughts influence the world we live in, and that we are generators of this? And the answer is yes. And back then, that information, that truth, that knowledge came through without any kind of fanfare, without any kind of attachment, the way it comes through now. Today it can't get through because our rational mind is so contaminated. We have a very contaminated ego. We have to claim this information as if we created it, as if we discovered it, as if discovering the world was round, we get to own the round world. Patent it. The world's round. Anyone who's living on the round world now owes me a percentage of it. That's how greedy we've become. Self-serving. Okay. So, in the process of, in the progress of our what's the word? I need a word. I'm exhausted with the word journey. I'm exhausted. I'm going to use the word evolving. I'm exhausted with all these words. I need a new word. Make a word up. And the word sojourn. In evolving to this point where we are now in our evolution together toward becoming energetically alive, energetic consciousness. Think about it as evolving into our nuclear consciousness, multi-conscious, alive from the inside, conscious, getting our wiring, becoming what they were, but in this era, with an awareness of a global population, with an awareness of plumbing, for example. But of course the Romans had plumbing. With an awareness of, how to fly. What makes us different from the Romans? We still kill. We're like Julius Caesar's armies. We still do basically the same thing. We're not that evolved. Our clothes are different, but basically, we haven't changed much in 2,000 years. Let us be very clear about that. We are very much the same. Can you think of anything different about us?
Socialism.
Oh, no. They had tribes. They were...
No, I mean like the health service and social services and so forth, what the Americans won't pay taxes for.
In 2,000 years. They had taxes.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just talking about what I think one little evolutionary step was compassion, which created socialism in terms of the health service, social service.
So you think collective compassion?
Oh, sorry.
You think collective compassion?
No, I don't. I just think that... Does this work?
Yeah.
I just think that there are some structures in place that were not there in Rome, such as the health service and the social services.
Well, let us say that within the tribes and with collective, they had their own form of taking care of each other within networks. That
by
would
crucifying all their enemies 100 miles along the road.
Oh, I don't think that was a problem. We have our prison system.
True.
And
I mean,
I'll match you there.
No, no.
Oh, I will so match you there. Don't go there with me.
No, that's...
Don't even try it.
No,
Don't
that's-
even try it. Don't even try it. Especially since we call ourselves Christian. Don't go there. Don't go there. Go ahead.
I still think that our attempts, very poor,
That I agree with.
to construct a society that demonstrates a certain amount of compassion, as in the health service and social services, is a small advance on the Romans. I think temperamentally we are the same. We're vengeful and full of rage, etc.
And I think, wow,
But-
for 2,000 years,
It's not much,
if,
I agree.
if they can show an attempt at health services after 2,000 years, well done. And what will they do with another 2,000 years?
No,
Maybe improve it.
I'm with you. I just
Yeah.
can't concede that Roman society was like our society. Exactly.
Oh, all right. Although the U.S. Senate's based on it.
Oh, well.
And-
There's...
Yeah.
But, and I'm British is getting there, I suppose.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I still think there are some structures which are an improvement.
But I really was talking not about whether or not we have electricity, but I was talking about human nature. I
Well,
really
I think
wasn't
the health
talking.
service is based in human nature.
Stop
yeah.
with the health services, I beg you. I was talking about human nature and whether or not we are still inclined with the same appetites.
We are.
Thank you.
Nevertheless, the health service arose out of human... Yes, but the
Stop
thing is...
with the health services.
Out
You
of
made
human
your
nature.
point.
Pardon?
You made your point about health services.
But it arose out of human nature. How else is it going to arise?
You are someone who really is afraid health services are going away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think that is collapsing actually in our society.
Yes, it is.
That socialist ideal.
Right. It is. Yes, it is. So you see, it hasn't advanced much at all, has it?
No, I agree. I wasn't arguing that point. I just said
Okay.
I think there are a few changes.
Okay, I'm not asking that again. Okay.
Who wants to win around here?
Huh?
Who wants to win around here?
I don't think I made the point of my question understood. I was asking about human nature, not whether or not we have plumbing and electricity, different, like human nature. Nature. The nature of us. Like whether or not we have the same instincts. Has the instinct to kill dimmed? Has the instinct to steal dimmed? Has the instinct for greed dimmed? This is what I was speaking of. Instincts. I was at that level. Okay. So, continuing with this, the energetic nature and consciousness of that era, and let me point out as a consequence of this last discussion that was an era of violence. But we are always violent. That is the shadow side of human nature. We will always be violent. I don't see that is ever going to suddenly end. That will evolve out of that, our response to fear. That may happen, and I would love to be, but we're not going to be around to see that. So, that era had its version of violence. Any version of violence is the same kind of violence. Whether you're hanging on the cross or whether you are being tortured in prisons, does not matter. Okay? That era had its violence. Which in some, but it also had this extraordinary time of philosophical, intuitive opening. Both existed simultaneously, and that alone is fascinating. Which suggests that within the darkest part of human nature, that the darkest part of human nature can be present simultaneously with the lightest. That the idea that one has to completely conquer the darkest side in order to get to the lightest side is itself an erroneous way to look at human nature, that they both coexist. That somehow one is always working with or through the other. Do you see what I mean? And this is something, by the way, that I've seen in healing, that a perception, an attitude people sometimes carry, very frequently carry in the healing journey, is that until they're all healed, they're not healed. Until they're totally healed, then they have to put a pause on their life journey. I'm not healed yet, so therefore I can't go on with the whole of my life. I can't be happy until I'm all healed. I can't be shopping around for a relationship. I can't take care of my children. I can't until I'm all healed. It's an all or nothing thing. And that is not the truth. Healing is part of the life structure. And the rest of the life structure moves on with it. Okay, so in going back to, I wanted to bring up Lucretius and Poggio, bless you, Lucretius and Poggio. And to tie it in today, and to say that this era is like coming full circle, the spiral is returning to that place, but on an upper level. Because we are in this phenomenon of our intuitive, energetic consciousness advancing to a different level. Let me put it that way. That our intuitive senses are opening wide, and our myths inside of us, the ones that we have familiarly used to navigate our cosmic world, are shutting down. So if you look at the society, you see a lot of people leaving the familiar structures of myths. Churches are emptying, synagogues are emptying. You see that, because those myths are not working. What we're replacing with is this sense that we somehow have to sense our own way. Which brings us to which brings me to this. And that's that you understanding, truly getting that you are an intuitive being, and what that means. What that really, really means. That you have intellectual senses, emotional senses, you have a spiritual intuitive system, you have a physical intuitive system, and you have a psychic intuitive, an archetypal intuitive, that you have, and honestly, if I was, damn, oh here, okay, so I'm going to draw yet another one of this is my only one left. My only one left. So if I draw it here, you are going to be all right? Because it's not complicated. Okay, I'll draw. I'll use another one. I'm so proud of this because it's really pretty neat. I mean, it's organized. This is my last one. This is like not a pumpkin, but it's going to look that way. But remember when you learned latitude and longitude? Remember that? Yes. And this really is, and here you are. Okay, that's it. That's my drawing. You are like that. You are now living in a hologram. And that's really how you have to understand yourself, as living in a hologram. You don't, the way you conceptualize yourself and the way people do think of themselves is if they're only living forward and they don't have a backward. You don't think of your backside at all, except when you choose a seat in a restaurant. Everybody wants to sit with their back to the wall. Nobody likes their back exposed. But nobody does. So you want to, you think of yourself as only going forward. You think of your life as having a future. Future's forward. Why is future forward? Because you walk this way. So it's all metaphor. It's all metaphor. There's no such thing as a future being the way you walk. But that's how we think of it. That's how we think of it. But in fact, you live in present time. You live in an energy field. This is your new anatomy system. This is how you need to think of yourself, as living in an energy field, as living in a field, not on a line, but in a field. And that if you put your arms out, this is roughly the size of your field. This is it. This is your home base. This is home base for you. You're this big. And if someone walks behind you and slips into your home base, quietly and silently, you're going to jolt like this, because you're going to feel it. So this is how you really have to think of yourself now. That this is your anatomy field. Not your anatomy body, your anatomy field. So when people say, get out of my space, we are adapting our language. Here are the power of words. We are adapting our words now. But people don't even get why they're saying that. They don't even get why they're saying that, but they're saying it. Get out of my space. What are my boundaries? The word space and boundaries are being redefined to accommodate this. To accommodate this. Because the boundaries people are talking about are invisible. But they're not. They are as real to you as the boundaries on a wall or property boundaries that you can actually survey. And in fact, you will feel the violation of these boundaries as much and would have to have that remedied through some kind of discussion, through some kind of therapy, through some kind of mediation, if someone violated those boundaries. Agreed? Yeah. This is how energetically alive you are now. So when someone says, how do you influence? What influences you? You need to rethink and be very mindful now that this is your field of life. This is your field of life.